welcome to another episode of the Best Real Estate Investing Advice Ever show. We're doing this Facebook Live, and we're also recording it for the podcast. The podcast episode will air this Friday, but because you're watching via Facebook Live, you get a sneak preview, or you get the whole thing. Actually, there's no preview; you get the whole thing. So you ready to jump into it, Theo?
Let's rock and roll.
All right, let's do it. Best ever listeners, how you doing? Welcome to the Best Real Estate Investing Advice Ever show. I'm Joe Fairless. I am with my co-host on Follow On Fridays, Theo Hicks. Theo, what's your favorite color?
Blue today.
Okay, cool. I ask you that because I always say, how you doing? You're like, great, Joe, and then it's like I roll right into it. I wanted to throw you a change up today. This is the show where we get to the best real estate investing advice ever. We cut out all the fluff that you might hear in other real estate platforms. But here, no fluff, baby. And today, since it's Friday, it's a special segment, and we're going to talk about what we got going on in our entrepreneurial endeavors and answer your questions that you have. So if you are watching this via Facebook Live, then feel free to submit questions below, and we will either get to them on this episode or most likely another episode, because this one's jam-packed. How are we going to structure this one today?
We've got a full plate today, so we're going to talk about 5 different things. First, we're going to talk about what Tim Ferriss refers to as from his book Tool of Titans. I think he calls it 1,000 true fans, but we're going to talk about 2,000 true fans, quote unquote. But Joe has a little twist on that, and then we're going to transition into talking about how and why you want to send your private money investors monthly email updates when you're doing your deals.
And how to structure them.
And how to structure the emails, yeah.
What to say and what's important to include every month.
And then from that, we're going to transition into what we've learned by trying to buy an email list.
Yep.
And then
absolute disaster.
We'll talk about that a little bit. And then we're going to talk about goals and a concept called 50-50 goals, which we'll get into in more detail. And then finally, we're going to end with a question about raising rents for an apartment community.
Sweet. And that question was submitted
on YouTube.
On YouTube. All right, cool. All right, so first thing you mentioned was the 2,000 fan thing, and you have Tools of Titans.
I do.
And I have the book Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. Best ever listeners, you should have Tools of Titans, the book by Tim Ferriss. And in the book, there's a chapter, I forget whose interview is profiled.
I can't remember either.
No, okay. But he says that being generally famous is overrated because it's more of a liability than an asset. If everyone knows your name, everyone knows who you are, there's more downside than upside. And if you think about it, it's true, unless maybe you're a movie star or a performer in some way. I think that there might be some exceptions, but for most of us, that's true. And instead of being generally famous, it's more important to be selectively famous to 2,000 to 3,000 of the most highly targeted individuals. And when I read that, it immediately clicked for me. And I emailed a couple of my team members, Theo, one of them, and some others, and I said, here's our target audience, our primary target audience. And this is actually going to be really helpful for any best ever listener who's raising money, because I'm about to tell you who my primary target audience is, and these are the 2,000 to 3,000 people that will help my business grow the most. Therefore, I want to focus our efforts on that. And that is 35 to 65-year-old males. Now, I know we have about 30% females listening to this from the audience, and I'm all about targeting females as well, but the reality is when I look at my investor list that 95% of them are males that I work with. Now I have a couple really large female investors, but primarily, I'm just going by numbers, just data, 90+% easy are males. And 90+% are within the ages of 35 to 65. And The majority of them live in or very close to a large city, and they are either business owners, C-suite executives, doctors, or real estate investors who were active but want to be passive because they're done with it. And that the last part is a bit generic because that's a lot of the population. They're either business owner, executive, doctor, or real estate investor who wants to be passive. But that's true. That's when I'm looking at the investors who have invested in our deals, that's who they are. So after reading that, the laser focus is on that target audience. And the one outcome from that was I am getting a page on my website called investwithjoe.com. It's being built right now because I realized, holy cow, that's my target audience. That's who we work with the most. But there's nothing when they go to our website that actually says, hey, person who is perfect to partner with us. And accredited, by the way. They have to be accredited. Hey, person who's perfect to be partnering with us. Here's the page just for you. And therefore, in about a week and a half to 2 weeks, when you go to investwithjoe.com, it will be a landing page just for those individuals that I'm referring to. Now, again, disclaimer, people outside of what I just said, so females, people who are 70 years old or 25 years old, people who don't have the occupations I mentioned, yes, I've partnered in some capacity with a lot of people on my deals, but they're all accredited, and primarily that's the target audience. And it's actually refreshing because now it's not a matter of, okay, let's look to see how many views we have on YouTube, how many emails have we gathered, how many downloads do we get of the podcast. It's more about who are we attracting because it's better to be selectively famous within 2,000 to 3,000 of the individuals I just described than to be generally famous to everyone, have our show on a billboard somewhere and waste money and get leads that aren't qualified.
I thought it was, when you mentioned it, I thought it was interesting because you kind of put your own little twist on it. Because I think because the original post about 1,000 True Fans, he was basically saying that you want to maybe make a product, whatever your product is, and if it's $10 and it's like maybe it's some of our monthly product, it's $10 and sell it to I think 1,000 people. That's 10,000 people a month, which is $120,000 a year, which is plenty of money to live off of. So why would you focus on hitting millions and millions of people, and maybe only getting hitting millions and millions of people, and maybe having them purchase it maybe 1 month or 2 months, to have your 1,000 people that you will buy your $10 a month product, but then since they like you so much and they're such a big follower of yours, maybe they'll buy your $10,000 seminar or some sort of video series or consulting program you have out. So I like how you've kind of taken it and been like, well, you can use this for anything, whatever business you're doing, whatever thought leadership platform you have, you can do the exact same concept. I didn't think of it that way. That's absolutely true. So thank you, Tim Ferriss. Thank you for putting together Tools of Titans, and thank you for doing those interviews, and thank you to whoever you interviewed, whose name we can't remember in the book, and who mentioned this in the book. Yeah, if you just Google 1,000 True Fans, it's based off a blog post, I believe. Well, but these are two separate things. They're two separate things? Yeah, 1,000 True Fans is an article that was written and has been since updated because Tim talks about it a lot. Yeah. But separately, he interviewed someone on his podcast, and it's in the back portion of the book, and this individual talked about how not to be generally famous, but be selectively famous to 2,000 to 3,000 people. And it's a different person from who authored 1,000 True Fans, but similar concept. Yeah, I'm going to look it up, and in the YouTube video and then the show notes of the podcast, we'll put the name down there. Sweet. So we give him credit. Okay, so that's the 2,000, being famous 2,000 people. Next, we're going to transition into talking about monthly investor emails. Monthly investor emails. I'm going to get my laptop out for this because I'm going to list out the outline
that we put together for our monthly emails to investors in our deals. And just before I go through the outline of what should be included, a little bit of context. A major complaint that accredited investors have when investing in a deal, a real estate deal, is that there's lack of communication, because real estate investors tend to get caught up in the deal and having the deal perform, which is the most important thing. But it's also important to communicate along the way so that at the end of the deal, when it is successful, the investors want to invest with you again. And at our conference in Denver last February, I remember a accredited investor who was doing a presentation, and he said it was a great investment, but I didn't hear from the group for like 3-4 months at a time. And at the end, we made a lot of money, but I would never invest with them again. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember when Jeremy Roll said that? And so I had already been doing monthly emails to investors on all the deals, and Theo helps out with that too. And so we've been tag teaming this now, and so this is a great topic for us to talk about. And so that's the reason why we do monthly emails. It's not typical. It's more typical to do quarterly reports. But it's nice to be in front of investors, letting them know what's going on at the property. And sometimes it's not a whole lot, because real estate should be ideally real estate is boring. That's the ideal, because if real estate's boring, then time is on our side, paying down the mortgage, ideally increasing the value, and cash flowing along the way. So here's the structure that we have for monthly emails. And before I go into that, we do monthly and quarterly. The monthly emails are slightly different from quarterly emails. So the monthly emails I'm about to describe, and then the quarterly emails I'll describe. It's just a little addition to it. So monthly email, it will have the occupancy and pre-leased occupancy. So we'll list out what's the occupancy at and what's it pre-leased at. So the leases that are on tap to people who are on tap to live at the property. We'll also have the renovation update. For all of our deals, we do a renovation of the units, increase rents, and improve the property aesthetics from an exterior standpoint as well. And therefore, it is an update that says how many have been renovated in total since we've bought it. And sometimes we'll provide pictures of the renovated units, maybe a new monument sign out front, new landscaping. So it's renovations, interior and exterior. Then are the rents of the renovated units reaching the premium that we projected? That's really important. What type of premium are we getting? Are we flat at exactly what we thought we'd get? Are we a little bit under for maybe it's a seasonal thing? Because people are not moving in as much, and so we have to go a little bit under to make sure occupancy stays healthy. Are we a lot over, and why? And then the any other improvement projects that we've done. So if we built carports, for example, and we're charging X amount of dollars for those carports, how many we built, if we've painted, whatever. And then we'll have miscellaneous updates, like if there's Halloween and there's a Halloween party, or if this is a good one too. If there's an employer that announced that they're coming into the local area, which is happening a lot, fortunately for us in Dallas-Fort Worth right now. If there's any major announcements from a development standpoint, anything like that. We'll include a link to that article. And that will be the update. Now, every month doesn't have all of those things I just mentioned, but ideally it has most of those things every single month that we mentioned. For example, we might not have pictures of renovations because we sent those pictures when the renovation started, so that they'll need to see the same pictures of different units over and over again. And clearly there's seasonal stuff. But that's the structure for the monthly email. And I'll pause right there in case you have any questions.
And the information that we get for this email, we get that from the property manager?
Yes, the information that we get from the property manager or the regional manager, depending on how the management company set up.
So for these emails, you want to email them on the first of the month. If you plan on sending them out on the middle of the month, if you plan on sending them out at the end of the month, email in the middle of the month. That way, you're not rushing at the end of at the deadline to throw the emails together. So it takes time to get all this information together from the property manager into your email. So make sure you do that.
Yes, that is a lesson we learned last month. I was in Miami meeting with investors on a Friday, which was the 14th, I believe, and Theo was in Asheville, North Carolina, hiking, and we were scrambling a bit to get all the investor emails sent out because we didn't prepare in time to get it done prior. So yes, it takes. I mean, we have 8 properties at this point that we're sending updates on, so it does take a while. And one lesson that I've learned along the way regarding timing is I used to send them out by the 7th of the month, and then it would just take a little bit longer for month-end stuff to wrap up. And now we've set expectations that it will be sent out by the 14th of every month. But our internal goal moving forward after last month, where we were scrambling, is to send it out by the 10th. And then that way we have 4 days cushion if something unexpected happens.
And I think the only other thing that I can think of that I've learned so far is that when you're actually structuring these emails, some of this information is kind of like we have out in bullet point form, and so whatever is like the best thing that's happening in that property, make sure you put that in the introductory paragraph of whatever you're sending emails. So they start with something good, then make sure you also end with something good either. So if you get like some sort of incident in the property, you don't want that to be the last thing or the first thing the investor said. You want to put that in the middle. So
yeah, that's just something called recency bias. It's proven. It's a psychological thing where if you read, at the end especially, if you read something really, really good at the beginning and then pretty good in the middle, and then there's an incident at the property and you put that at the very end, even though that is completely insignificant relative to the overall property, if you ended on that, then the recency bias was proven that they're going to have a bad taste in their mouth about the whole update, when in reality that was 3% of the whole picture and 97% of it is doing phenomenal.
That's why restaurants give you dessert last. Get that sugar rush in there.
I want it first and last. Great experience at the beginning and great experience at the end. Okay, cool. And then the quarterly thing, the only tweak to quarterly updates is that we'll include the profit and loss statement of the property and the current rent roll. That way investors can see that. And we offer the detailed financials at any point in time that they want to look at it, but we send it out on a quarterly basis so that they have access to it.
And the only thing I can think of to add to this is just to get a little bit more technical about it. But we use MailChimp, that's the service we use, and then for all these images and all these links, you don't want to put the screenshots of these pictures or the screenshots of the P&L statements in the actual email. You want to have like a link and then link it to Dropbox or whatever other service you use. That way the email's not super long and
yeah, it's nice and compact. And since we're getting technical about this, we have the header image is of the monument sign, so the main sign out front of the apartment community, and in the bottom right-hand corner of the header image, we always have the company, the Ashcroft Capital logo. That way, it's included in there, and all we do is we just go into PowerPoint and group the image with the logo, group that together, save it, and then upload that image to be the main dominant image for every update.
I think you did everything for the investor emails.
So, one other thing, real quick, and then sometimes we'll do monthly payments to investors, other times we'll do quarterly payments. So obviously, if it's quarterly, in the quarterly update, we'll mention the amount that they will receive and by when. And then if it's monthly, we don't really need to mention every single month that they're getting a payment or distribution. We'll just mention at the beginning of the distributions what we're on track for, and then if that changes, then we'll let them know. Cool.
Okay. So transitioning, this has to do with the emails, but also this kind of plays into the 2,000 true fans versus just having that shotgun approach, trying to collect as many names and emails as possible, is email lists. And we recently tried to buy an email list, and it didn't go very well.
No, it didn't. It's a big belly flop is what happened. Paid $3,000 for 60,000 emails. So back up, it's clear that the larger the email list, the larger your influence and your community grows. And the email list, having an actively engaged email list is more important than, it's right up there with a podcast. I don't know which one I'd rather have. If someone says, would you rather have 100,000 listeners to your podcast every day, or would you rather have 100,000 actively engaged people on an email list? I'm not sure. That's how powerful it is. Now, if you ask me 100,000 YouTube subscribers, screw YouTube subscribers. I'd rather have either 100,000 email people or podcast listeners.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one I'd pick between the two, but those are the two most important things I've identified through testing and my marketing background, etc. So because we've got the podcast thing down, but the email thing, I have a goal of getting, 30,000 emails, subscribers in my database. And I think we're at 5,000 or so. We're at 4,000 or 5,000. And the opt-in rate is really good. The open rate is really good. It's 25% or so on average, and the click-through rate is incredibly high too. I think it's like 3% for the emails we send out. So we have a really engaged and high-quality email list. And so I was like, all right, let's 10x this thing, right? I've read about 10xing, and let's. And there's the one thing we talked about before about, okay, this is your 12-month goal. How can you accomplish it? How can you accomplish it in 1 month? So I did a brainstorm. I was like, we can accomplish this thing in 1 month because I'm just going to buy a freaking email list, 60,000 emails, convert 10,000 of them, 20,000 of them, a third, and that will be it. That'll be done. Well, paid $2,000 for the email list, paid $1,000 to a company that is sending them out on our behalf, and it's just a database email company. So I believe it's on the up and up. I mean, they've been on ABC News being interviewed on their business and how it's good and blah blah blah. Well, we got out of 60,000 emails that were sent out, 60,000 emails, we got one opt-in. One opt-in. One single opt-in out of 60,000 emails. And so clearly a bunch of bad emails. Clearly it went to spam with a bunch of people. And clearly this freaking does not work at all. What a waste of $3,000. But is it a waste? I'm going to catch myself because I've trained myself not to think of things as a complete waste. What are the lessons learned? The lessons learned so far is that in a lot of things there's no shortcuts. You have to put in the work, you have to grow it organically, and you can enhance things along the way. For example, we have a team that is optimizing the opt-ins of each of our pages on the website. I don't think you know about that. But I hired, it was actually someone who I interviewed on the podcast, and he said his team optimizes your website so that the people who go to your website are more likely to opt in.
Okay. So
we're paying him $1,500 a month, and they're optimizing page by page the website, and they said their goal is to get 50 additional opt-ins a month. Which, small potatoes, but going back to what we were talking about earlier, 2,000 to 3,000 people is really all. I mean, really, we only need that many for. I mean, the deals that we're buying, they're fully subscribed, and one of them is under contract. It's been taking a little while, but it's going under contract. Hopefully today, but it's already subscribed. So I can't imagine what will happen when the emails grow to more, because we already have more investors than we have deals.
Yeah.
So complete belly flop, lesson learned, and that's the story.
And you're saving investor listeners $2,500 too.
Yeah. I don't yeah. So I'm officially taking the stance that I do not recommend buying email lists from email databases, albeit reputable email databases, according to the research my team and I did. I don't recommend doing it. It was a disaster, but lesson learned, and we'll keep moving on.
Exactly. All right. Speaking of moving on, let's move on to the next topic. 50-50 goals.
50-50 goals. This is something that it will be a game changer for every best ever listener who sets goals, which I hope everyone does. And that is, well, let me tell you the problem first, and then I'll tell you why this is the solution. The problem is that I set aggressive goals, and I also set aggressive goals for our team members, Theo included, and others. And the problem with aggressive goals is that if you don't accomplish the quantifiably aggressive goal, then there's a feeling of letdown and a failure. And we all know, there's no failure, it's just feedback. But more to the point, instead of having a goal being dependent on if you achieve it or not, that is a specific thing, now we approach it half of that, 50% of that is actually achieving it, but the other 50% is have you identified, or what have you identified that will help you and the business get better results in the long run through this goal process. So, for example, let's use the email thing. For example, the goal is to have 30,000 emails in the next 12 months in our database. And this month, because that was a goal, it was to have 7,866 emails by the end of this month. We're not going to get that. Mm-hmm. And so that was 50% of it, but the other 50% is what have we learned that we can apply towards the long game, because we're in this for the long run. And when we do that, then we feel a sense of accomplishment. And then we're able to actually improve the business from a long game standpoint, because we're in this for decades, not months or not a year or two. And that makes us, myself included, and team members, feel a lot better about accomplishing or not accomplishing goals, because we all know we're better off in the long run because we went through this exercise. Mm-hmm. So the 50-50 goal is what we're doing from now on, and it's simply 50% of the success with the goal is achieving it, and then 50% of it is identifying what you've learned that will help the business in the long run. Yeah,
it kind of reminds me of a concept that I guess he's a cartoonist, Dilbert, the Dilbert cartoonist, Scott Adams is his name, and I read his book, and he talks about systems thinking versus goal thinking, and that when you're trying to pursue something, so I'll use the example of a podcast, that's what resonates with me the most. You're making a podcast, and your goal is to get X amount of listeners, X amount of downloads, or do this many podcasts per week, and let's say after a year, you don't reach your actual number. Assuming you continue to do it, that year you're going to learn so much about how to do a podcast, like the actual system of how to actually create a podcast, of how to structure the podcast, how to record it, how it all works. But even if you quit completely, you still had a system of how to speak better, how to structure presentations, and they're all different systems that you can use for essentially anything that you do in life. So I think that and 50-50 goals are very, very similar in terms of, obviously you want to actually accomplish that goal, but in the actual pursuit of it, you're learning something that if you look at it as a complete failure, you might not necessarily take that new system with you. You might throw it all away and start fresh, but you tell yourself, hey, maybe I didn't reach my podcast goal, maybe I didn't reach my newsletter goal, but I learned how to write better for my newsletter. I learned how to speak better by doing a podcast, and obviously everyone can benefit from speaking and writing better.
I love that. Yeah. That reminds me of when I work with some of my clients and they start their own podcast, and they're also having investor conversations. The longer they do a podcast that's interview based, where they're asking questions to their interview guests, the better they become at investor conversations, because the initial inclination people have is to, when they talk to an investor, is to actually talk a lot. Well, you shouldn't be talking a lot. You should be listening and hearing what their goals are, hearing what success looks like for them, where haven't they had success in investing if they haven't, and then aligning what they're focused on with what you've got, and assuming that it makes sense, talking to them about what you're doing. And the more you ask questions, the more you interview people, the better you are at asking questions in other situations. And the better you are at ultimately closing more deals.
Yeah, exactly. The podcast is a really good example, just because even if you don't even show it to anyone, if you just had the conversation with someone and just do it by yourself, like, you're still actually doing the process and you're learning how to speak better. And again, for me personally, the biggest thing that I realized when I started podcasting, because I did mine solo, is that there's like a disconnect between what actually, like the thoughts in my head and then me saying them out loud. So I can't articulate what I'm thinking in my head. And so once I realize that, I know it's just totally helped me have better conversations with just people in general, but also with doing this podcast and talking with some clients and things like that. So
yeah, good stuff.
The last part will be a question. I think it'll be a pretty quick answer. It's from a YouTube comment. So you can also ask questions on our. We also post this video on our YouTube channel, and you can ask questions there. Just Google Joe Fairless YouTube and find that. But the question is from Jeffrey. He says, "Hey, what are ways to raise rents when implementing trash collection for every resident in a 375-unit community?" So I guess the way I look at this is he wants to, implement a trash collection service which costs more money. So how does he raise rents to cover that? Is that what the question is?
I don't know what the question is.
I think that's what the question is.
I'm hard at following. Well, okay, repeat it one more time, please.
So the exact question is, what are ways to raise rents when implementing trash collection for every resident in a 375-unit community?
Okay, so he wants to raise rents by implementing trash collection. There are a couple. Well, first off, can you raise rents based on the market and the market comps? That's the first thing. And he's saying raise rents through trash. Really, it's how can you how can you increase your revenue, either by raising rents and having trash collection included in that, or by having a separate fee that residents have to pay for trash collection. Either one of those two, you still got to look at what's the competition doing and what will the market bear, so that you know if you can actually, if residents will pay for that extra increase in rent to have their trash collection included, or an incremental fee. So that's the main thing. That's the main answer to his question. In addition to that, there are services that will offer, and we actually just bought a property, a 314-unit property in Dallas that had door-side trash collection. And they charged $15 to the resident. All the resident had to do was put the trash outside of the door, which isn't the best when you're walking around the community, because you just got trash outside people's doors. But you put your trash outside the door, and they've got a service, a third-party service that comes, picks up the trash, takes away, no muss, no fuss. They don't have to go walk to a dumpster. And that was a revenue-generating fee because they charged a resident $15, but it cost them $10 to actually pay for the service. Therefore, they're making $5 per unit on that. And the other way, and the reason why they did it is because this property, it's a concrete jungle. I mean, there's really no green area, and we talked about this property already on the show. And so there's not a lot of room for dumpsters.
Okay.
And it's really tight. And if there was a dumpster, it would have been right next to someone's window. I mean, so it made sense at this property, but even better, able to make money on it per unit. Or you can just do a fee, and you got a dumpsters, and you charge whatever the market will bear for it, and that's a fee on top of the rent.
That's a perfect answer. Yeah. We have one more question.
Okay.
That came in via Facebook Live. Does your minimum buy-in amount vary per deal?
No, but not as of yet, but it might in the future. And so someone's asking for a deal that you have, do you change the minimum amount that you that investors have the investors have to invest in order to be in the deal? How I approach it is, and it could change, is $50,000 if you're a first-time investor in a deal, and $25,000 if you're a returning investor. And that likely will go up in the future. But as far as has that changed from previous deals? No. But it will likely go up in the future, where bringing in new investors will be 100. I'm interviewing Carlos Vaz in the next couple weeks. He's a big-time multifamily syndicator and investor based in Dallas-Fort Worth. And then you go to his website, the minimum for new investors is $500,000. So I see that eventually going towards getting increasing, but as of now it's $50,000 first time, $25,000 if you're a returning investor.
All right, Andrew, thank you for the question.
Sweet. Well, best ever listeners, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you haven't subscribed, then shame on you. You've got to subscribe to the show, not only in iTunes, but also in YouTube. And in case you missed it, we have the transcription of this episode, and every episode for the last 2 months, or no, month or so, and every episode moving forward at bestevershow.com. So if you want the transcription of this and you just want to look at the notes, then you can go there at bestevershow.com and look that up. Theo, where can the Best Ever listeners get in touch with you?
TheoHicks.org is where I post my weekly podcast.
Sweet. All right. Talk to you soon, my friends.